Hi everyone. So I know I introduced myself earlier, but I'm Graham. Like I said earlier, I'm a Greenfield alum, and so my presentation today is on the top 5 things about filmmaking that I wish I knew back when I was entering Greenfield. So to start off with, I'm just going to take a minute to talk about myself. So obviously, like I said, Greenfield alum. I won the Most Accomplished Filmmaker Award back in the 2017 Greenfield Awards. So that's me on the left side of the screen there, obviously winning the Greenfield Award back in 2017. But I've been making movies basically since middle school. I won my first film festival when I was like 12. I went to Muhlenberg College, where I graduated in 2021 with a double major in film studies and media communication. Since then, I've been working as a video producer outside King of Prussia. But I still do my creative stuff on the side all the time. I'm constantly making short films. So on the picture on the right there is me directing a short film that I shot earlier this year. I'm going to talk about that movie later in my talk. And then at the bottom there, that is me and my girlfriend and our 2 dogs, because I love them and I love to talk about my dogs as much as possible. I think they're adorable puppies. So the first tip that I have, this is far and away the longest portion of the talk. This is going to take up like half the time. I apologize in advance. I'll try and get through it as quickly and painlessly as possible. And that's pre-production. I'm talking about it so much because I think that pre-production is a really underrated, kind of overlooked level of production. A lot of times you have an idea for a short film, you get really excited about it, you want to write a script, go out there and film it right away. And it's great that you have that enthusiasm. That's awesome. I just think sometimes people kind of overlook some preparing steps. So for the short film that I just made, I wrote it in the fall of 2021. The plan was to film it that winter, but the budget fell through and there was a lot of like behind the scenes drama, and so filming ended up getting bumped an entire year, meaning I spent a full year and a half just in pre-production. I do not recommend spending a year and a half just in pre-production. Obviously you can't. The Greenfield Film Festival will come and go, and some of you will be going to college, so don't do that. But there's a lot of things that I learned over that year and a half, things that I did that I would recommend to everyone to just help prepare yourself for filming. So the first one, this is kind of obvious, but multiple drafts of a script. I know when I was in high school, I would write my script and then edit it like maybe once before we would go and film. There's some things that I do now that I think are helpful. One that I think is really great is to write your script and then take like a week off. Don't even look about it, don't think about it. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Just take some time away from the project, so then when you come back and you read it for a second time, you have totally fresh eyes, a fresh perspective, and you're going to notice a lot of things that you didn't on the first go around. Another thing is, I mean, you could send it out to like a friend or family member who's not affiliated with the movie in any way to get a fresh perspective. Also, having like a read-through of your script, having people read out all the dialogue. They don't have to be actors, it could be friends, family, whatever. Just hearing your dialogue and your script come out of someone else's mouth is going to sound a lot different than what you heard in your head. So kind of getting that outside perspective as much as possible, I think, is really helpful in the screenwriting process. The next thing is storyboarding. I've actually always storyboarded. I'm a big fan of storyboarding. I've done it since like middle school. There's some Hollywood directors who are really into storyboarding, some aren't, but they have like all the time and money in the world, and we don't. So I think it's good to be as prepared as possible. So for my storyboarding process, once the script is in good shape, I usually just find a time where I'm feeling really particularly inspired creatively. For some people, you know, it's like first thing in the morning. I'm a night owl, so for me it's like 2 a.m. I all of a sudden have a million ideas. Read through the script and I just try and like see the movie in my mind and then just draw it out almost like it's a cartoon. So like there's some, you can find templates online that have like little rectangular boxes that you can draw your storyboards in. I don't even do that. I just get like a blank piece of paper and draw my own little sloppy rectangles and then do like stick figures for all my characters. You don't need to be an artist to do storyboards, and I'm living proof of that. I am the worst artist in the world. I'm going to prove it. So this is one of my storyboards. That's a young woman attending the funeral of her late father. But I don't think you would ever know that's what this image is unless I told it to you. But that doesn't matter because you don't need to know that's what it is. I just need to know that's what it is because I'm the one making the movie. So I was able to, I knew that I wanted the woman in like the 1/3 of the frame and then the casket to be in the other 2/3. And so this sloppy, awful drawing became that frame in the movie. That is a terrible drawing of a person. It looks like she has a broken neck, but that became that. And then this terrible picture of a dead person that literally has X's over their eyes became that. So point is, you don't have to be an artist. Just do stick figures. Do whatever you can. It's just about kind of seeing the movie in your mind and writing that down, getting it on paper so that you can kind of share your vision with people. Then turning that storyboard into a shot list. This is something I didn't do in high school, but I've done it ever since then. It's essential now. Basically just taking every little panel of the storyboard that you drew out and turning it into like a bulleted checklist that you can then have with you on set, and you can literally cross off each shot as you're getting it. So I use an app called Shot Lister. You do need like a subscription to it. For me, it's totally worth it. You don't need that though. You can just get a piece of paper and a pencil and write all this stuff out. For Shot Lister though, I have each shot, the nickname, a description of it, the size of the shot, gear I need, the lens. So I know this was shot 1A was going to be on a stabilizer with a 50mm lens. Another shot's an over the shoulder on sticks on a 75mm lens. That's a little extra. Me being a little extra, but so you don't need to do all that. You can just have a list, and you know that you need a wide shot, you need a close up and over the shoulder, whatever. Just getting the basics of what you need out on paper in a bulleted list is so helpful. The other nice thing is then kind of converting that into a rough schedule. So for the Shot Lister app, it does that kind of automatically for you. So for this day, I knew that I was getting shot 1C at 5:30 p.m. I figured that would take about 20 minutes. So at 5:50, we'd moved on to shot 1D. Again, that's going a little overboard. But just being able to, kind of like judge how much each setup is going to take you, write that down. Time is like a very rare commodity on a film set, so being able to schedule stuff out as much as possible is going to save you so much headache in the end. Another thing is a mood board or a lookbook. This can be kind of fun. This is just going through and finding either still frames from other movies or TV shows or pieces of art, whatever kind of visually, aesthetically inspires you, and just making a collection of that, either as a PowerPoint, as whatever. There's apps that kind of compile all these images for you. Just anything that kind of gets the look or the vibe of your movie across that you can share with other people. So, for example, for this short film I just did, there's a dinner table scene early in the movie that the look of it was inspired by this shot from Get Out. I don't know if you can see it super well on that screen, but there was a shot from the movie Hereditary that really inspired me for a nighttime scene later in the movie. There's another frame that I pulled that, again, is from Hereditary, and another one from Get Out. Obviously, those movies were big inspirations for me. Going on Google Images, going on Pinterest, going on whatever, and just pulling images that inspire you, just to share them with people, just so that everyone knows what your vision, your vibe, your aesthetic is for your movie. So the next thing is previs or test shoots. So the short film that I just made, we were going to film it out in a cabin in the woods, or an old farmhouse in the woods. I was very nervous about it because we only had a set amount of time there. There was a lot of pressure, and so I found myself wishing that I could kind of time travel and go ahead in time and see the finished product and know what I did wrong, so that I could go back and do it again. So basically, what I did was my girlfriend and I shot the whole movie before we ever even made the movie. So just the two of us, we were at my grandparents' house, and without any lighting equipment, without any audio equipment, just with us acting, we took my storyboard and filmed and acted out the entire movie. I edited it and I put music and sound effects in there, and it felt like time travel because I was able to watch my whole movie start to finish, a crappy version of my movie, before the real movie was ever even made. So I have this that I want to show you just for fun. It's like a 2-minute comparison of our crappy test shoot with the final product. So just to give you guys kind of a quick plot summary, the short film is a horror comedy about a young woman who just recently lost her father. She meets a young man at a group therapy session who just lost his grandfather. They really hit it off. They're having dinner at the young man's house when he reveals out of nowhere that he actually kept his grandfather's body. It's at the house with them, and he turned it into like a taxidermy statue that he keeps in his bedroom. Pretty creepy, I know. And then this big thunderstorm rolls in and traps her at this house. So she's stuck overnight with this guy who turns out to be kind of crazy and the stuffed kind of statue body of the grandfather. So my girlfriend played the lead female role. I played the lead male role. And then for the dead grandfather, in the corner of the room, since it was literally just the two of us, we found an old Halloween Uncle Sam mask, and whoever just wasn't in frame would just wear that. So obviously didn't put a ton of effort into this, but it was still super helpful just to get to see, dialogue that sounded weird, shot selection that felt weird. So yeah, I'm going to show you the comparison from what we shot to what the final thing was. I apologize, the volume on this maybe isn't the loudest, so
Really
there we go.
At first, to be back here without him.
I know what you mean. I haven't been able to go back to my dad's house ever since.
I just have to keep.
We're really bad actors.
He's not really gone.
Exactly. You'll always have a part of him with you.
Oh yeah, that too, I guess. But also, I stuffed my grandpa's body and put it up in my bedroom. So that way, he's always watching over me.
Me miming eating food.
So empty without my grandpa. Like I said, this house used to be his, and I just see him everywhere,
I feel the same way about my dad's house. Well, I haven't actually been able to go back there.
I just have to remind myself that he's not really gone.
Exactly. You'll always have a part of him with you.
Oh, yeah, I guess that too. But I stuffed my grandfather's body and I put him up in my bedroom so they'd always be watching over me.
There's Uncle Sam. That guy's obviously much creepier than the Uncle Sam mask. So obviously, the point is you don't have to take any test shoot super seriously. It's just about, you can get your friends, family, whatever, film it on your phone, edit it in iMovie, just getting a chance to, go through any scenes that you're particularly worried about. And yeah, see the movie before the movie's even filmed. So helpful. It's something I definitely will be doing in the future. I don't want to play that again. No. Okay. So two more things in the pre-production section, then we'll move on. Kind of going off of the test shoots, lighting and camera tests. This movie was the first time I was my own cinematographer. Super worried about it, and so there were just a couple lighting setups I knew that I was going to use in the movie that I wanted to test on my own at my own house. So for that dinner scene, I tried out, I just set up some cameras, first time doing it, tried that look, changed it around a little bit. For the nighttime stuff, tried that. I was happy enough with it. Another thing that's really helpful is to get feedback, get constructive feedback from someone who's honest. So I showed this to my girlfriend. My girlfriend's great. I love her. She's the nicest person ever. But she saw that and she was like, Graham, doesn't look very good. It can look a lot better. Try again. So I tried it again. I showed it to her. I was like, all right, what do you think of this? And she said it looks a little bit better, but try it again. It can go better. So I kept trying, and each time I did a different lighting test, they just kept getting better and better. Until eventually I landed on that look, which got girlfriend approved, and that became that in the movie. I think they're pretty similar. That look became that became that, and that for the dinner table scene became that. So again, all this stuff is going a little bit overboard, but you know, just getting out there with lights and cameras, just play around, try things out, experiment, see what looks good, see what doesn't. I'm so glad I did this, because if I had just gone with the very first lighting setup that I had, the very first look that I tried out, the movie would look really bad. But I think it looks pretty good now, because I went through and I experimented with lighting. So doing the lighting test, doing the camera test, I think they're super important. And then I was able to make lighting charts based on what I had experimented with. So this is through an app, but you can, again, just do this on like a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil. I just drew out, from like a bird's eye view what the set was going to look like, kind of drew in where the props are going to be, where the actors were going to be, and then was able to kind of place in there where all my lights were going to be. And I had this printed out on set. So helpful. I could literally just go through and, when we were setting up the lights, know where everything was going to go in order to make that look that I had replicated at home. So the very last thing for pre-production, then we're moving on, I promise, is rehearsals. This is kind of self-explanatory, but just getting your actors to read through the script, rehearse it with them. Acting, obviously, can make or break a short film, and so rehearsals are so important. For this movie, we actually did rehearsals all over Zoom, virtual rehearsals, and that worked totally fine. A little awkward, kind of acting to a computer screen, but it all worked out. And the nice thing was I was able to record the Zoom sessions so we could watch it back later. It was basically like watching like a stage play version of my movie. And, kind of like reference, oh, this scene was really good, for this scene, let's work on this. Rehearsing with actors, big thing. So finally moving on from pre-production into pacing. I talked about this a little bit in the film school homeroom this morning, but pacing is something that I feel like so many people struggle with. Students struggle with it, professional filmmakers struggle with it, especially when it comes to short film. Short film pacing is really difficult because we're all used to feature film pacing. And feature films follow, the hero's journey, which is something you'll read about a ton in college. So that's, every feature film, we start out by kind of like getting introduced to the world. They were introduced to our main character. We see the main character kind of go about their everyday life. And then like 20 to 30 minutes into a movie is the inciting incident. That's where, the first big exciting thing happens. And I feel like a lot of, student short filmmakers try and take that same...
We're good.
Nope, I just take that same structure and just kind of scale it down to a short film. Unfortunately, it doesn't always really work like that. So I think there's a meme, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a meme that like every student film starts with a close-up of an alarm clock. And we see someone turn off the alarm clock, and then they get up and they brush their teeth, and they have breakfast, and then they drive to school or to work, and then something really exciting and interesting happens there. Start with the exciting or interesting thing. We don't need to see everyone's main character wake up and turn off an alarm clock unless something really exciting is happening right then. So yeah, and I think this is just kind of evident, like, anytime you're watching a YouTube video, it could be a 5-minute long video, that's it. But if you're not interested in the first 30 to 60, maybe if that seconds, what are you going to do? You're going to click away, you'll find another video, you go to the recommended tab and choose something else. And unfortunately, the same is true with your short films. So this is something I always really struggled with, but it just became a rule. Make something interesting happen within the first 30 to 60 seconds. You got to hook your audience in. Once they're hooked and they're kind of like in the world of your movie, then you can kind of slow down the pace. But like for this short film I just did, I knew I needed the dead grandfather mentioned within like 40 seconds, and so that's what I did. So this is, pacing is something you can work on both in writing and editing. With writing, like I said, try and have something interesting happen on page 1 to pull the audience in, and then once they're hooked, you can kind of introduce the world and the characters from there. But also with editing. Editing sometimes is even harder with pacing because sometimes there's a shot that you worked really hard on and you really love the cinematography, the look of it, whatever. But if that shot isn't actively contributing to your story and making it better, you gotta cut it, as painful as that might be. Sometimes even just trimming frames off like the start and end of each clip can be helpful. Really just trying to make the most concise and economic version of your film you possibly can. It's difficult, but that's gonna really, really help you out. Tip number 3 is audio. I think you're talking about audio in some other sessions today, but audio is something that I feel like so many young filmmakers overlook. I know I overlooked it. It really came back to bite me in a lot of short films that I made. But the fact of the matter is, it's easier to forgive bad visuals if you have really great audio than it is to forgive bad audio, even if your visuals look amazing. So I have just like a little 30-second video here to prove that.
We're going to show you 2 examples. First,
really good audio but really terrible video. So you can see with really terrible video how you can follow what I'm saying, how you can get into the story, despite the fact that the image has been degraded. Directors will use this creatively, like the Blair Witch Project, which is like an hour and a half of really terrible video, but the audio is so good you can follow the story. Things change drastically when we switch that around.
Suddenly, with really bad audio, it's hard to take what I'm doing seriously. It's hard to take this whole video seriously. And to get through something like this that's even 5 minutes is painful. This might work maybe with action cams if the content is really good, like a skydiver. We kind of forgive that.
Yeah, so obviously that's
For an actual film content,
painful to get through.
we can't pull this off. It's terrible and it's unwatchable. And it's only unwatchable because the audio is terrible.
So how to make sure you're getting clean audio. The number one thing is just getting the microphone as close to the actor as possible, getting as clean and a crisp a soundtrack as possible. So for my movies, I have a boom mic set up. I have all the actors wearing lavaliers. I make sure I have at least 2 or 3 potential audio sources to choose from in case one craps out on me. I have another one as a backup or 2 backups. But I understand that at student film level, you might not have access to all that technology. You might not have lavaliers. So some workarounds for that. On iPhone, it sounds fake, but literally if you can just hide an iPhone anywhere on set, either like behind a prop or in someone's lap, and turn on the voice memos and have that recording, that's a great backup, sound source that you can use. And I guarantee like a really clean, crisp audio voice or iPhone voice memo audio track is going to sound better than a professional microphone if it's 20 feet away and it's windy outside. So just get that microphone close to your actors as possible. Another thing you can do is if you have a backup camera, if someone's got like a cheap DSLR that's not being used for video, you can put a shotgun mic on that and try and get that closer to the actors than your main camera. Any way to just get an audio source as close as possible. iPhones work, whatever. So tip number 4 is something that I've been guilty of, I've struggled. It's taking 30 seconds before you hit record. So there's just been so many times where you're behind schedule, rushing around, trying desperately to make it on time. And I'm not even thinking, just kind of throw the camera up on the tripod, hit record, and go. And then sometimes I'm watching back the movie and editing, and I see this really glaringly obvious error in the shot, or maybe the shot just looks weird, and I wish I could go back and redo it. So my tip is just to take 30 seconds before you record and make sure that you're happy with it. Each shot is filled with all sorts of kind of unconscious, subconscious choices that you're not even aware of. So I think just kind of going through and becoming aware of them and making sure you're happy with everything in the shot is really important. So for example, camera angle. A lot of times, like I said, I just kind of throw the camera up on the tripod, I hit record, and whatever the camera angle is, that's what it is. But sometimes the tripod is a little like higher up than your character, sometimes it's a little lower, maybe it's like to one angle or the other by 30 degrees. And sometimes that can influence the shot or the way that the shot feels. Maybe that's saying something thematically about the shot that you don't intend. So just thinking about that before you hit record. Lighting is another big one. The look of your shot. Make sure you're happy with the way it looks before you hit record, because once it looks that way, that's the way it looks forever. So that's a big thing. Anything in frame or continuity issues, that was a huge one. I know in high school, in almost every single short film I made, in at least one shot in the movie, you would see 1 or 2 things in the background. You'd either see an extension cord, because I had like extension cords plugged into lights. You'd see one across the floor, or this was a huge one, water bottles. Cast or crew would leave a water bottle out, and all of a sudden in the middle of a shot, there'd be a water bottle in the background. And professional Hollywood movies do this too, right? I don't know if you guys remember in Game of Thrones, there was a Starbucks cup in the background of a shot. I think in Little Women, which is like a period piece, there's a hydro flask in the back of a shot. So just taking a second and making sure that the shot is clean of any cups, I guess, or any other continuity issues is huge. And also making sure everyone is on the same page. There have been a lot of times where, again, I'm kind of like rushing around, I call action, and the actors kind of freeze and they go, wait, what am I doing? Where am I supposed to look? Where am I moving? Making sure before you hit record, everyone's on the same page. The actors know what they're saying, where they're going, where they're looking. The crew knows what they're doing. Just, making 100% sure that everyone knows what they're doing before you hit record is a big one. So just as an example, on the short film that I just made, it was all night shoots. We were filming overnight. which got a little challenging. So we were filming the climax of the movie in the first of 2 weekends that we were filming. And by the time we got to the climax, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. Everyone was exhausted and just wanted to go to bed. And so I just wasn't really thinking about my shots before I was hitting record. And so we're just kind of trying to fly through it as quickly as possible. And I wasn't, I edited it between the 2 filming weekends, and I just wasn't super happy with it. And so fortunately, we had that second weekend to go, and I was able to fit in some reshoots. And when we reshot the scene, I was paying attention to the camera angle more. I was paying attention to the lighting more. I paid attention to my directing choices, the acting. I gave them different acting notes this time, and it made a huge difference. So I took this shot here, which I think looks a little flat and bland, and we turned it into that, which I think looks a million times more interesting, because I was just paying attention to the framing. I paid attention to the lighting. We took this shot. He's supposed to look kind of menacing here in this shot, but I didn't direct him well when we shot it the first time. It looks like he's smiling a little bit. Like, it just doesn't look very scary. The lighting looks kind of bland. And so we reshot that, and that I think looks a million times better. The lighting looks so much better because I was paying attention to it. His acting, like, he looks really creepy there. He's doing that, like, kind of like Kubrick stare and the smile. So my directing choices were better. Just taking the time to think about what I was doing before I hit record made a world of difference in those 2 shoots. So the very last thing that I have here is stay happy, stay safe. It's just a movie. So obviously filmmaking, I think, is like the most fun thing in the world. I love doing it. Have a great time every time I make a movie. But it also can be really stressful, right? Like, you're working with a budget, you're working within time limits. There's a lot of people all trying to come together to make one consistent vision. And so that can lead to arguments. It happens, it's inevitable. I think trying to mitigate that as much as possible is a huge part of the filmmaking process, and trying to keep everyone happy on set. I know there was a movie I worked on a couple years ago, and it was just, we had like this one little miscommunication early in the day, one of the days of filming, and it just snowballed throughout the day. And by the time we got to the end of the day, we were doing like night shoots out in the woods, so it was dark in the woods. We all should have been working together, but we weren't, because we were all arguing and we were mad at each other. And so, we were just not a good team at that point. And so then, 2 things happened when we were shooting that movie. One was no one had a good time. No one had fun. And, we're all here to make good movies, but we're also here to have fun. You should enjoy making movies. Everyone should have a positive experience on set. And this particular movie that I'm talking about was not a positive experience. Everyone was miserable. And also, too, is you can see in the movie where we stopped working together, because the quality is like fine, and then it dips dramatically. Because the cinematography is not as good, the audio is not as good, nothing is as good, because behind the scenes we were not a cohesive team. So making sure everyone's having a good time, but also, it's good to have everyone have fun, but also for the quality of your movie. Everyone behind the scenes needs to be working together. They need to be an effective team. So the first tip for that is just having a meeting with your cast and crew before you film is huge. I feel like sometimes, there's a lot of people on set, and sometimes someone's not doing the job that you want them to be doing, but maybe you never told them what you expected of them. Maybe they didn't even know what their role was. So making sure that everyone on set knows their job, knows the expectations, knows what they're supposed to be doing, I think that's going to help stop a lot of arguments before they happen. This just kind of leads into that, but clear communication, both in filmmaking and just in life. I think, being able to have like clear, concise, proper communication will help solve 90% of arguments. Another one, this has been something that I like to do, is having just kind of a place for people to go during the filmmaking process. Sometimes there's a lot of people on set, and sometimes people get bored. They don't really have anything to do. They don't know what to do with themselves. They're just kind of there twiddling their thumbs, and that's no fun. So I like to have just one room set aside for people to go that has phone chargers, that has snacks, maybe a deck of cards, book, something like that, for people to go either if things are getting a little overwhelming on set, or if they're bored and they have no job to do at the moment. This is a big one, making sure everyone is well fed on your set. My first semester of college, I took a pre-production class, and one of the first things the professor said, and he was really adamant about it, was you should not be filming unless you can at least feed your cast and crew. A lot of people on set are probably doing you favors. They're not getting paid a ton, so you should at least bare minimum be feeding them. I know I crewed on a short film a couple years ago, my friends and I did, and first of all, the directors were just kind of jerks. They were just sort of nasty people, but then we were filming all all day. You had to get up at like the crack of dawn. We were filming all day outside in the middle of winter. So we were freezing. We were working long hours. But on top of that, they didn't feed us. They told us that like we were on our own to buy our own food. So not only were we miserable, but we were losing money because we had to pay to feed ourselves. So at least, you know, I like to have granola bars, fruit snacks, Gatorade, water on set at all times, and then, you know, buy your cast and crew a pizza or Subway or, you know, get Chinese takeout, whatever. Just make sure everyone's, you know, taken care of. The next thing is safety. I know this is something that I wasn't always the best with in high school. I tried to do like these crazy action shots sometimes, and then people would get hurt. I know in one short film, someone like stepped on someone else's toe when they cracked a toenail. Someone hit their head really bad on another shot. You know, I love movies. They're the best thing ever, but, you know, a movie is just a movie. A movie should never, ever, ever, ever come above anyone's physical safety or emotional safety. So making sure that everyone is safe on set should, you know, that's paramount. That should be everyone's number one priority. Nothing else comes above that. And then, yeah, just the last thing. Again, like I said, a lot of people are probably doing you favors on set. They're there to help you out because they love you. So be nice to them, be slow to anger, listen to everyone's input, don't make anyone feel left out. Everyone should be having positive experiences on your set. Humility, I think, is a big thing. I know a lot of student filmmakers who I feel like fall on like one or two ends of the spectrum. They're either like so unsure of themselves that they never go out and make anything, and then there's other filmmakers who are so sure of themselves and they think they're like God's gift to filmmaking that they become really arrogant and stuck up and obnoxious, and they're no fun to be around. So be humble, be a good person, be nice to your cast and crew. And, you know, at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. So that is the end of my thing. I'm ending it with 2 more pictures of my dogs. So we have a couple more minutes left. If anyone has any questions for me, now's the time. Yes, okay, so we'll start with you and then go to you. I'm on YouTube at Blue Dog Films, if you want to look me up. The one that I'm showing you right now is not online yet. You're seeing it before anyone else. But yeah, Blue Dog Films online. Yeah.
I know another rookie mistake you guys mentioned was like not developing your conclusion enough.
Right.
Do you have any advice on how to avoid that, especially with experimental films when like maybe you don't know what the conclusion will be as you're filming?
Oh, that's interesting. I guess especially for experimental, having a consistent theme in mind from the beginning is probably the most important thing. You know, if there's some idea or theme you're trying to convey, making sure you know that from the outset and everything's kind of working towards conveying that theme. One thing that I like to do that I think is kind of good for conclusions is making everything feel cyclical. I like to in high school I had like I did like a bunch of short horror films that ended similarly to how they began, where like it was whatever happened was just starting all over again. But having some kind of cyclical image or something that you can kind of like ties back into the beginning of your movie, I think that helps. But yeah, I think just keeping a consistent theme or idea or message will help. Yeah. You.
You said that you took inspiration from other things. Like, I try to do the same, but like,
right.
How do you stay away from just being a blatant rip-off of that?
That's so hard. It's so hard. I've done that so many times, and I've done it where like I don't even realize I'm doing it. Like once in high school, I made a short film and I was really happy with it. And then like 2 months later, I was watching The Twilight Zone and I realized that there was a plot of an episode that was exactly the same, and I must have heard about it and accidentally ripped off. It's tough. It's, you know, some filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino is like famous, like he blatantly rips off other movies, but you know, he makes it his own in some way. So I think just trying to focus on how that inspiration made you feel, maybe more than exactly what it is, you know? So if there's a comedy that really made you laugh or a horror film that really scared you, rather than, you know, trying to completely rip off the plot or, you know, a specific framing of anything. I think just focusing on, like, why do I feel this way? Why is this speaking to me in particular? And then finding a way to kind of repackage that and make it your own is maybe the best advice I have, but that's really tough. It's tough to take inspiration, but then not rip it off. So, yeah, just find what's ever personal to you in that inspiration and focus on that. Yes?
So we're in high school. My sister has us writing our own scripts and making of it what we can. How do you get past the not knowing what to do, having half your script done, and the other half you have no clue.
Oh gosh, that's so tough. That's so tough. I mean, yeah, I struggle with that a lot. I mean, yeah, on one hand, like, I feel like just finishing it, just like writing whatever is, you know, and just kind of getting through your first draft is sometimes the hardest part. If you can just get something out on paper and then, like I said earlier, like take a break, come back to it, maybe something will inspire you. Yeah, or you know, trying to, like I said earlier, like think about the ending from the beginning, try and, you know, find a really cool climax and try and then write the rest of the script working towards that. But yeah, that's really tough. Finding inspiration there is tough, especially if you have one half but not the second half. Yeah, I would say just get whatever you can down on paper, take a break from it, try and focus on things that inspire you, watch other movies that are kind of similar to what you're writing, read books, do whatever to try and get inspired, and yeah, revisit it and then just kind of, you know, try and tweak whatever you wrote. But yeah, it's tough. Yeah.
Do you have any lighting tips for shooting at night in the dark?
Ooh, I do. That's really tough. So for all my lighting, and I'm still kind of getting new to cinematography. So like for this movie I did, it was a lot of, I took like the basic like 3-point lighting setup and try to sort of tweak it for each individual moment in the movie. Did you say it was outside or inside? Outside. So what I've done with that is trying to get just like the most powerful lights you can and getting them up high and trying to mimic that like moonlight. So I feel like that would be getting like kind of like a daylight balance, like 5600 Kelvin light, having your camera's white balance be like a little warmer to get it looking bluer. One company that I got lights from for my short film, I'm getting an update, was gonna hit OK there. Godox. I found some lights from them that were like $90, which I could afford, and that were really bright and powerful. So yeah, I'd say get the most powerful light you can. Try and make the light a little cooler to mimic moonlight. Get it as high up as possible. And then like bounce sheets, really like just bouncing light into actors' faces, because you want it to look natural. You know, you don't want it to look like you just set up a light in the trees. And power. Power is another big thing. So, you know, either getting battery-powered lights, a lot of extension cords, or yeah, like portable outlets are a tough thing to come by. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Godox, I think, is a good company to look into, and then yeah, just whatever powerful light you can to mimic the moon. Anyone else? Yes.
It's like a really specific question, but you have the storyboard in the beginning with the person in the coffin.
Yeah.
Where did you get that coffin?
So that was a huge favor. I shot one of my very first short films in a funeral home that was just like the owner of it was like an old family friend of a friend, and so I was just able to contact them again, and they were just super grateful enough. So yeah, my advice for that is like just if you know any like distant connections, like again, friend of a family member of a whatever who you know who has something cool, try and tap those resources. For me, that was the funeral home. If you're looking for a funeral home specifically, I don't have a ton of advice other than just see if you know anyone.
To share your contact information for more questions.
Sure, yeah.
Have to go get their
Absolutely, yeah. Hunsaker Funeral Homes, they're up in Orfield. Yeah, they were super cool.
Yours.
Oh, mine. Yes, absolutely, yes. I thought you meant the funeral home. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, any other?
Funeral homes right in the kids in our buildings.
Any other questions before we might be out of time.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking you if you're
Right, okay, yeah. I'll write down my information if anyone has any other questions, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
We're going.